Well, thank you, John. Jan, nice to be here.
And thank you for coming back on. Just wanted to thank a few people for their support and donations during the week. We had Julie who sent her donation. We also had, let's see, Oscar, I think from Spain. And we also had another one who sent their donations during the week. Really appreciate it. There was one other one. I'm not finding it right now. Also, again, always thanks to Michael, who sends his support regularly, Ted, etc. Always appreciate all the help we can get here. Constance, I had spoken to you 2 or 3 weeks ago about coming on the show again, and I meant to have you on a while ago again, but I had to take a break from doing the show. It just, all the stuff going on. It was just, I just was floored watching the public react to this COVID psyop thing.
You can't keep up with everything.
Right.
It's too much. It overwhelms me from time to time.
Yeah, well, and you expose this stuff for a decade, and then you see everybody around you just fall for it hook, line, and sinker. It was pretty tough. And
Hmm.
then you have this Marxist organization parading around as rights, as a rights group. And, so it was interesting to watch all of this play out over the last, 5 months now. And I took a break from the show. So anyway, glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Still waiting for a copy of your book.
Okay, it's believe it or not, I have it in a package ready to take to the post office for you. I haven't been out that much. Okay.
I'm just giving you a hard time. So,
Okay.
today we wanted to talk about the cult of QAnon. And so,
Okay.
you had said that and yeah, I see that cult book on your shelf behind you. You had said that you had been doing research on that, and it tied to another cult that you had saying that you had written on decades ago.
Yes, yes. I in QAnon, I think has substantial identity with a movement that I've known by the name of Manifest Son of God, the Sonship Movement, the Overcomers, and some by some references called Neo-Pentecostals, although Neo-Pentecostals is kind of a broad term. But the first place I discovered them was in a report called an evolutionary basis for the reappearance of the Christ and his executives, the Masters of Wisdom, and it was by Ernest A. Ramsey, who was an associate pastor at Unity on the Plaza Church in Kansas City, Missouri, and had been inspired to write the book from Benjamin Krem's appearance on their quote Maitreya the Christ at his church, the home church of Unity Church in Kansas City, Missouri, Unity on the Plaza Church. And he wrote about the elements that were coming together for it, including Alice Bailey, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, Donald L. Plim, PhD from Wayne State University in Detroit, where a good share of my undergraduate education took place, and other names. But the part of the report that interested me the most was called the Sonship Movement, and how they had three major centers, one in Springfield, Missouri, with a fellow named Bill Britton, another one in upstate New York at a location surrounded by tall pine trees, and the third one in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which he later told me was Rock Church. John and Ann Jimenez, when the person who originally brought me the report, and I decided to track him down and query him on his statements. But I started tracking that movement, and I discovered that movement had penetrated my own office, and they had volunteers had been sent to me after there was a major news story about my work fighting the New Age movement, and they had attached themselves to me and became almost my best friends. And it was only my own disorganization that saved me from giving them a key to my office so they could keep things organized while I was gone, which they wanted to do. And I went when I went to Kansas City, and January 1983 was handed the report that I told you about by a lady who later was on the city council of one of the Kansas City suburbs. I was disturbed by the content of the report. I brought it back and showed it to the helper who was helping in my office, and she looked at it and frowned, said, well, let's see. She said, there are types and shadows. There are these things, there are this things. This man must be counterfeiting the good things of God. She said, remember, Satan never has an original idea. Satan can only counterfeit. I said, what do you mean Satan has no original ideas? He has lots of them: rape, pillage, plunder. Uh, anyway, I didn't think that much of it. And my book was released around Memorial Day, 1983. And I was sent to Florida for a week, where during the week, I did an interview with a 50,000-watt Tampa area station. And the talk show, the station manager wanted me to meet Carol Balizet, the author of a novel, end-time novel called The 7 Last Years. And we drove to her house in a Tampa suburb. And she came out, and at first her demeanor was a little puzzling. She said her sister had sent my tapes, and she had viewed them, but she recognized what I was writing about was a nice scholarly dissertation on the New Age movement. But she said what I had identified as the core teachings of a New Age were also the central teachings of the sonship movement, the Manifest Son of God movement. And at first I thought she was troubled by it, and it turned out, became very clear that she was an adherent of it. And we had some discussion, and she named some names, including Kelly Varner. And then she happened to mention Bill Britton. And when she said Bill Britton, I just happened to have that report with me. And I whipped it out of my briefcase, and I proved to her satisfaction that Bill Britton was knowingly and consciously working with the rest of the New Agers for the same agenda: New World Order, New World Religion, a New Age Messiah, and the destruction of fundamentalist Christians who did not follow their agenda. And at that point, she turned rather pale, and she went upstairs and got a pamphlet called Unlimited Glory, brought it back and asked me to please read it, and said, there's some other things you need to know about this. She said, we're being taught that we're going to have a 30-year-old man come and lead us as our king. Well, I read the pamphlet that night. The heresies were frankly 10 times worse than the New Age report had described. I was shocked. And in the report, he said he had talked to the New Agers and people didn't know how evil their plans were, but what he didn't tell them was he was teaching exactly the same thing. Well, I was taken back, and thank God Carol Balizet was an honest soul and said she intended to get out of it. I have no idea. I haven't talked to her since, but I flew home, and I had to confide in somebody on this. And I called my dear friend Phyllis, and Phyllis and Joe were the ones helping at my office and wanted the key. And I just started spilling all this out. And I finally said, Phyllis, I said, this scares me to death. If somebody of Carol Balizet's sophistication could have fallen for it, nobody is safe. And there was silence for a minute. And then she said, Constance. I said, yes. She said, I have news for you. I said, what's that? She said, Joe and I are into it too. I said, promise me you will not do one more thing with it until you come and view the materials I've collected on it. She said she would. She came over the next day. She was to pick up an autographed copy of my brand new book, just hot off the presses, which I was going to give her. And she walked in, and frankly, she looked like a scene out of The Exorcist. And she said, God sent her to deliver a message to me. I was to cease and desist on my work on the New Age movement immediately. I had failed to grow. I had failed to progress. I was insisting on reading the Bible literally. And so therefore the work was being taken from me and given to others. And I said, well, I don't think God wanted that message delivered. But anyway, we started discussing what was in that book I had. And finally, I pointed to the part where they were going to be God's instruments to purge the earth of evil. They were going to usher in, they never left this planet. They were the generation that would break the bonds of death. They were the generation that would usher in God's kingdom by force and violence. And they would have their 1,000-year reign of peace here on earth. But since judgment began at the house of the Lord, they were to be God's instruments to physically exterminate those in the Lord's house who would not accept the latest move of the Holy Spirit, that we were gods ourselves and we were the generation that would not die. And it was targeting the same enemy that the rest of the New Age movement was targeting, and the same level, like Barbara Marx Hubbard's the Revelation. We come to bring death. We do this for the sake of the planet. The riders of the pale horse are to pass among you. They will separate the wheat from the chaff. It was the same message. Well, anyway, I pointed that out to her, and I'll never forget it. She said, "This is true, Constance." She said, "And you will be killed. And it will be your own fault because you failed to accept the deeper truths of sonship." And she left without taking a copy of the book. And needless to say, that motivated me to look at it much, much more carefully. They had changed biblical terms. They had taken a biblical agenda. The year of Jubilee was going to be the equivalent of the age of Aquarius. The Feast of Tabernacles was going to be the coming together of the world religions under one tent, one tabernacle. And that would be the new world religion. And and the new Christ was all of us. Jesus was the seed corn that fell into the ground. And I'm Christ, we're all Christ. And but anyway, I stayed on top of it, and from time to time, they made more attempts to penetrate my own operation. Several very hard. They must have spent some money on some of them. The pastor of their little church turned up where I was speaking in Cincinnati, wanted to go to dinner with me, and then I would do from time to time a television program. And whenever somebody would say to me, "Remember, Satan never has an original idea. Satan can only counterfeit," I'll tell you, I just froze. If you ran into somebody saying that, you've ran into one of them. And then I spoke in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina.
So does that mean you're one, since you just said
it? No, I quoted. Thanks, John. No,
I'm just teasing you.
Thanks.
Keep you on your toes there.
It was several times there would be people that actually physically show up at the doorstep here at the house and say God sent them, and then you start the slips would fall out of their face. They were at the school of the prophets. It might be things like school of the prophets, the new revelations, and the thing has split many denominations in half. It's a long movement. Bill Britton was one of the leaders, but it started earlier than Bill Britton. But I was looking at the QAnon materials and going through their books, and I was getting phone calls on it. And I just sat there and said, "This is the same thing, same thing." Now they've got it, and they've got a fantasy, and the new jargon for it is that Trump is their Messiah, that Trump is leading us through, that actually Trump had hired Robert Mueller to investigate Hillary Clinton. And that's why that's why Trump was referring to the investigation as a witch hunt, because Hillary was the witch. and the Pizzagate thing, all the rest of it going through it. But the bottom line was they're going to come in, they're going to take the kingdom by force and violence. They're going to have the 1,000-year reign. And those that don't go along with their agenda are to be dismissed from this world. But anyway, it's a very frightening movement. It's sucking a lot of people into it. It's bigger than just the QAnon thing, which is big enough with their symbols, but it's also split whole Pentecostal denominations almost in two.
So earlier, before the show started, this guy Adam Muddy something or other, I forget his name now, it was probably a troll account. He said, "Well, you must, you're a sellout shill," referring to me, because obviously Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein were arrested and convicted and put in prison. Therefore, non sequitur fallacy, QAnon is correct. As if most people from Pizzagate before QAnon even started knew about Jeffrey Epstein and Alefantis and all of this stuff going on with Pizzagate. And I had done 4 shows on Pizzagate. The left fake news media created the fake news term to try and get us trying to investigate the validity or not of this Pizzagate thing shut down. And then Trump came out and flipped it back on them, and that stopped them from shutting us down. So, but these people, it's really a bizarre sort of logic when if these two people were correct and they're Jewish, so it's a Jewish conspiracy.
Yes,
Therefore, the whole thing is a Jewish conspiracy. Pedophilia is a Jewish conspiracy, and anybody who's read the Old Testament knows that behavior isn't allowed. And then they'll refer to the fake Talmud quotes that I've also disproved, right, and that they cite back and forth to each other, and none of them ever actually open a Talmud to verify those quotes, which I did go in and verify, and they turned out to be fakes, all but, what was it, 1 or 3 of the quotes out of like 56 that I checked ended up being totally fake. And so, but they don't read the New or the Old Testament and realize, hey, these are the laws or the rules that we're supposed to live by. And so, all Jews are a part of this conspiracy, and they don't even define what a Jew is. It's like Revelations, what is it, 3:9, 9:3, I forget. Those who say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. So why are there people going around claiming that they are Jews who are not and do lie? It seems like a bit of blame casting to me. But, that's a whole other topic that we can get into. But, a broken clock is correct twice a day. So, if QAnon gets 2 things correct and 50 things wrong, there's the trolls are going off in the in the thread here. But if 2 things are found to be correct and 50 things found disproved or with minimal evidence to substantiate them, well, the whole thing must be true.
Well, the thing is a very clever, almost cut and paste between things that they've snipped out of the scriptures, out of context, and then plain old New Age things. And one of their books, their prominent books, I don't know if you've seen it or not, it's QAnon and the 1,000 Years of Peace. And they've got the section in there about the Maitreya and how this is maybe that's part of God's plan, and God has a plan for those people, just like Bill Britton. The themes are there. They've cut and pasted many things together, and I think part of it is a clever variation on something I call a game that folks in those networks love to play called Watch the Fundamentalists Run. And they plant something out there that's so outrageous that if we repeat it and pass it on, and lots of simple people do, then we look like simpletons. They can laugh and say, aren't they stupid?
Right.
And at the same time, aren't they dangerous? They need to be shut down, which is exactly what happened with Jonestown. And I had the joy of helping to give Jonestown back to the New Agers. He was theirs the whole time. They knew it the whole time. He's in my old New Age directories as a New Age center. His original location in California. And after the Kool-Aid party in Jonestown in 1978, as I recall, then suddenly, if we don't shut those dangerous fundamentalists down, we're going to have lots more Jonestowns. And he was theirs the whole time. They knew it the whole time. And I think this is a similar scam, and they're working on it, and they're pushing the buttons, and they're watching us, and they're watch the fundamentalists run, and big magazines like Atlantic, they're bringing this out and saying, well, conspiracy theory, and here it is, the queen of the conspiracy theories. And
so, yeah, it's like, and the term conspiracy theory is an appeal to ridicule. And I have, which is designed to get you not to think, not to look at the evidence, and just to dismiss it right out of hand. So if we pull up, I'm just pulling up showing my database on screen here. Conspiracy theorist, do I have the document here? I'm just looking for the CIA document showing that the CIA actually came up with the term conspiracy theory. Oops. I'm trying to get it shown on screen here. My screen just pulled it out. Let me see. What the heck? Anyway, it was up. My screen is acting bizarre right now. But September 1976, CIA, if people want to look this up, you can pull this up out of the CIA archives. They actually admit that they created the term conspiracy theory, actually a term created in 1967 to discredit anyone questioning the Warren Commission report on the JFK assassination. Mm-hmm. And ironically, JFK was assassinated the same day that Aldous Huxley died, or was overdosed, or whatever you want to call it, by his wife, was it Laura Huxley? But, of course, Aldous Huxley was running the whole MKUltra program, founded the Esalen Institute to spread all of this New Age crap. What do you have to say? You're deep in thought there.
Well, I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with you. This is the, and there have been people some that pose themselves as warriors for truth that did some bragging that they were actually doing things and setting things up for the CIA. And I'm thinking about one name that came to light, which was originally a shocker to me, but not afterwards. Patrick Matriciano and his wife Carol is a dear friend of mine. She did some very good work. They did some work together. There was an ugly divorce. I think they're both dead now, but he had did some bragging that he'd set some of this stuff up. The Jesus helped set the Jesus movement up for the CIA.
Well, I've done 4 or 5 shows with Steve Jones. I don't know if he's listening tonight. He's a big fan of yours. He said he would tune in tonight. But he's got your book or books, and he and I have been exposing on the show this whole, misdirection of Christianity that's gone on since about the mid-'60s.
This is, could I share something before we move on the
Sure.
Q&A thing?
Yeah.
Because when I tell people some of it's New Age cut and paste. Chapter 2 of this book, QAnon and 1,000 Years of Peace, I think it's their second edition of the book, is Chapter 2 is Everyone's Waiting on a Messiah. And this thing opens almost as a cut and paste from the Benjamin Creme Maitreya the Christ ad that appeared in the New York Times and Los Angeles Times and many major papers of the world full page on April 25th, 1982. And this is just, if I could just read briefly this, it said, you probably know that Christians worldwide have been anticipating the imminent return of Christ. Most biblical scholars believe this based on the prophecies in books like Daniel and from the very words of Christ himself. And what's really a, quote, coincidence, unquote, is that those who follow Judaism are awaiting their Messiah, and Christians are awaiting on our Messiah. True Muslims are awaiting their Mahdi. Hindus are awaiting their Krishna, and Buddhists are waiting on Maitreya. And they all expect him to bring peace on earth between all people. What a coincidence, but maybe it's not a coincidence. Maybe Christ will guide each one of these groups into the truth, removing the deception, ... And so they bring that and they throw that stuff into the mix. And then they throw the Jews as enemies into the mix. And they maybe they're the true Jews and the Jews aren't the true Jews, and so on and so forth. It's just a mishmash and a cut and paste among other things. But their bottom line is they're going to take this, they're going to usher in this kingdom by force and violence. And I'm afraid that what it may do is give a Jim Dandy excuse to powers that be. There's no way this group's going to outshoot the United States military or any other military. But they think they're going to have the power to go in and take it by force and violence. I'm told that already a QAnon supporter killed 8 people in Germany in a mass murder in Germany, and who knows how many other loose cannons are out there inspired by this stuff. and that it might be a jolly good excuse to come shut the rest of us down, saying that this represents us when actually it was something artificially contrived to fit another agenda.
So, and I asked the chat group if they have a list of things that QAnon got correct, and I'm not seeing anything yet. I would think that they could have would have a ready list of things that QAnon got correct. Do you know what can you say about the things that QAnon did get correct, and how does that play out? Is that like, a broken clock is correct twice a day type of thing?
Well, I don't know if that much was correct. I'm looking at their main points in this book, which kind of purports to be objective, but it's not. It's a QAnon book itself, a pro QAnon book, QAnon the Storm. I don't know if is that showing up on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. And in the back, he has a section on, and then came QAnon. It said QAnon is a, quote, conspiracy theory, which began with an October 2017 post on the anonymous internet. Now, I think it's much older than that because I recognize their foundations, but said the storm made by someone using the handle Q. And then the poster, who later moved to 8chan, claims to represent military intelligence with access to highly classified information involving the Trump administration and its enemies in the international cabal. And then and they had their what they said that what was going on. Their conspiracy theory set is known as the storm, after Trump's cryptic reference to a coming storm in the Great Awakening. And there's a picture here.
Can you hold it up a little higher, please? Okay.
And the picture is something that I watched in another video Saturday night. Said Trump made it a point to surround himself with military leaders and tease the media with talk about a coming, quote, storm, unquote. Soon afterwards, QAnon began his amazingly prophetic posts. And what was said on that video is posted in here. Said, you guys know what this represents, inaudible. Maybe it's the calm before the storm. And of course, there was speculation of what he meant by the storm. And anyway, what they said, the cabal never expected Hillary to lose. Well, Hillary did lose, so I guess they got that part right. And they said the storm is actually a military coup which recruited Trump to lead the political and legal aspects of what is to be the greatest sting operation. Now that's pretty far out.
Now,
Robert Mueller.
Go ahead.
Robert Mueller, an ex-Marine, actually works for the White Hats. And of course, they're the White Hats. Trump's the White Hats, while pretending to oppose Trump. And that the NSA has all the evidence needed to take down the cabal. And that JFK Sr. and JFK Jr. were murdered by the cabal.
Well, that's possibly true. Although, I've researched a lot into the JFK assassination, and that ties very heavily into the whole nexus of MK Ultra and all.
Right.
So,
and then they said the Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia was murdered by the cabal. And then that the evidence needs to be cleaned, slowly introduced under the cover of other investigations, so it is no longer unactionable evidence. And it goes through a number of things. That Attorney General Jeff Sessions only pretended to be weak and incompetent. This allowed him to clean out traitors in the FBI and Department of Justice. And Hillary and daughter Chelsea are into Satanism and witchcraft. Well, I could believe part of that of Hillary.
Well, yeah. So let me read some of these comments in the chat here. So Angie says Q is not a prophet. You didn't say Q is the prophet. You said they think Trump was the prophet. I think is what you said.
I think Trump's going to be there. Trump
right.
is their leader.
Right, and it has many purposes. It sure would help if people like that, to put it down, would actually follow Q and not posers. Let's see.
That'll be the day.
And then it says, you really have no idea what you're talking about, and I hate so much right now how you're talking to people. Let's see.
That's par for the course when you're coming.
This guy, Aquila, cannot stay on topic. For some reason, he thinks this is a debate about Logos and Christianity versus his pagan religion, and it doesn't appear that he's ever read the New Testament. But none thinks Trump or Q are prophets. And then, it's a Q has said disinfo is necessary. They're not the prophet, Trump 2020. I'm just, I thought it would be interesting to see what some of these people are saying in the chat area. A lot of people, I asked for specific...
Basically, I think they're saying Trump was God's instrument, and he's the one leading this revelation, and Trump's going to lead us into the 1,000-year Reich that they want.
Now, I asked a while back for specific things that Q proved correct, and I just asked for a simple list, and no one has provided anything yet. So it would be nice if people show us, see, here's the thing, is sending, putting out blurbs and then having people go research. That's fine. I mean, it's a good idea to research and learn things, but you don't put out things that are so ambiguous that they can be taken, any which direction. It's like, what's the stuff from adrenochrome? I've done a lot of work on adrenochrome over the years, and that's...
You just introduced something new to me. What is adrenochrome?
Oh, I don't know if you really want to know. So, well, basically, the Bible says that the blood is the life, and what people do, you're never supposed to drink the blood of the animal that you are killing, and so what these people do, well, it goes even further, but
Leviticus.
they're drinking the blood, but it goes even further than that. What they do is, the theory is that you cause adrenaline in people by stabbing them, children stabbing them, making small cuts in them, and then drinking their blood, and or full-on vampirism. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
right out of Leviticus, the life is in the blood. Okay.
Right. So, I'm sure there is truth to this stuff. Dr. Abram Hoffer, Dr. Humphrey Osmond, of course, Aldous Huxley, Dr. R. Heacock, Hunter S. Thompson, they were all into this stuff. Al Hubbard, all of these guys were MK Ultra. They were all behind this stuff. I have it also tied to the Pizzagate thing in my database here.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. John Smithies is another one, and they were all tied to MK Ultra directly through Aldous Huxley and his specific group. But I don't have any doubt that stuff is actually going on. Some people say that Hillary has Kuru or George Soros and whatnot. Maybe they do. And, but, so, the belief is that these people stay young by drinking young children's blood, and then the adrenochrome actually gets them high, sort of like mescaline, when they drink the children's blood.
Mm. I'm glad that was your area of research and I didn't have to go into it.
Well, yeah, it wasn't fun for me to go through either.
No, I don't think so.
So, it's, I still, let's see, it says, Cicada 3301 was literally a blueprint for QAnon. I don't see them posting anything of what QAnon got right in the research or in the leads or anything. She's coming in on Q, but doesn't know what adrenochrome is. Well, she's an expert on cults, not everything Q, and she is showing how QAnon is directly related to what's the cult called again?
The Manifest Son of God movement.
So research the Manifest Son of God movement and
I
find
have it.
out.
They can do a quick study, a quick read
Sure,
on it. If
let's
they
do
just
that.
download for free my book on the internet. You can download it at archive.org, the planned deception. And in the chapter called A Secret Kingdom, I have an extensive several pages on the Manifest Son of God movement.
So QAnon, Pizzagate, Cicada are all hoaxes and LARPs. That's a very strong possibility too. You know, it's like that woman I interviewed her a few years ago, Fiona Barnett from Australia. She puts everybody on this wild goose chase for evil Nazi pedophiles. And you know, when I interviewed her, the interview was a complete joke. I didn't even release it for 2 years, and I turned it into a pop-up fallacies video when I finally released it. But she sends people on a wild goose chase for dead Nazis rather than focusing on real pedophiles and real pedophilia going on today. You know, so everybody that she supposedly exposed subsequently was also already dead.
Now, when I was researching this and following the movements and the speakers on this, an interesting thing I discovered was that some of the folks putting this out are also relying heavily on some other books that claim to be about some of the MK Ultra stuff, but some of the sources I thought again were some Watch the Fundamentalist Run stuff. There was a Kathy, just blanked on her last name, and a Mark Phillips who was her protector, and they had she had everything like vice president, the former vice president under George Bush, Bush the younger, was a rapist, and Reagan was a rapist, but the churches are up there repeating some of this nonsense and passing it on like it's gospel. And again, it just sets us up for ridicule and not being taken seriously. And
Right.
Also for shutting us down.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, and that's, I think, the exact point of what Fiona Barnett was doing. Let me see if I have her in the database here. I'm sure I do. My database got flipped around trying to expand the window here somehow. Yeah, Kate Gardner is her real name, or Gardiner or Gardner. And, you know, when I didn't release my interview with her right away, she started doing all kinds of hit pieces on me and whatnot. But, yeah, there's this huge psyop out there. She's working with this guy, was working with this guy, Alfred Lamont Weber, who is part of the New York City Environmental Project, Yale Law School. So in 2011, I gave a presentation at the Free Your Mind conference in Pennsylvania, and this guy, Alfred Lamont Weber, was there. Total disinfo guy. And his lecture was about how microscopic UFOs fly into our atmosphere, fly over the ocean, expand into gigantic full-size spaceships, scoop up our water, shrink down into microscopic little things again, and fly off. You know, and it was just, you know, and there was actually, and the irony of this thing being called the Free Your Mind Conference, it was the Enslave Your Mind Conference. But, you know, the most of the presenters were presenting complete hyperbole and stuff that couldn't be fact-checked. So then anybody who goes and repeats any of this stuff is, of course, looked like a nut. But this guy, you know, like I said, went to Yale, worked for New York City, and ironically, Stanford Research Institute. So there's always...
What was his name?
Alfred Lamont Weber, and he's a JD.
Okay.
So he's a Juris Doctor.
Same degree I have. Okay, Juris Doctor. Okay.
Oh, so I should have put Doctor in front of your name for the show then, huh?
You're not supposed to do that if you're practicing actively, but if you cease practicing actively, then I can call myself Doctor. Okay.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Okay, by the way, the book I was thinking of before, the author of some of the books of the stories that I thought were pretty wild was a Kathy O'Brien. With a Mark Phillips.
Yeah, somebody just mentioned her in the chat too. Where did that comment go? I sorry I missed it. But yeah. So what did you have to say about her?
Well, I'm highly questioning what was in her books and how accurate it was, and what she might have been under some kind of mind control. I don't know. But some of the things that she's alleged to me sound, frankly, like pure fantasy, utterly unprovable, and something to set us up for ridicule. But I'm watching some of these fundamentalist churches with they have, you can pull them down on YouTube, and they have their cute kids are reading the things from Song of Solomon before they start, and then they're going through and explaining this with all gravity, how Reagan was a rapist, President Ronald Reagan, how all these other high figures were, and that Bob Hope was, and it's wild. I doubt if it's provable, but it's being fed into this mix, and also fed into this mix is something I've discovered, these red pill conferences, and they keep speaking in the QAnon circles about taking the red pill.
Well, that's from the Matrix film, right? Did you ever watch The Matrix back in the late 90s?
I fell asleep several times trying to watch it on TV.
Interesting.
No.
So, yeah.
Pill conferences are being held, but a lot of the folks in QAnon are showing up and are speakers sometimes at some of these red pill conferences. In fact, I think I think this year might be a virtual one, but they've got a big one coming up, I guess, for 2021.
So thank you, Brian, and also thank you, Del, for the super chats. Much appreciated. Yeah, and then, there's all of this stuff. There's all of these accusations, and I've asked, 2-3 times now for a list of things that QAnon got correct, and nobody's...
Oh, okay, well, okay.
Nobody's provided anything yet. I'm still waiting, and there's a bunch of pro-QAnon people in the chat. I would think that they would at least provide... a few things that we could, go with. But faceless voices on the internet should not be bothered with. That's what Brian says.
I found one place that was, when I was doing some searching on it, and one of the first things that came up, and it was a video from a White Dove ministry, I believe, in Georgia. Now, the QAnon supporter that Trump has endorsed, Miss Green, is from Georgia also. And that's Georgia was big, rich territory for the Manifest Son of God movement also. But they're quite they have the power of God themselves. They have this power, and they're going to take it by force and violence. And Trump was God's chosen instrument to help usher it in.
So Mario says the prediction of McCain's death. I'm wondering if the big tumor growing out the side of his neck was a giveaway on that one.
Oh, that was one of their other more exotic teachings, is that McCain was actually executed.
Interesting.
That's in this little book that I held up. That McCain was executed, which is that's nonsense too. And I mean, you pass it on with a straight face, and there's lots of grounds to shoot you down.
Mario, he had no tumor. So what was the big thing on his neck? Was that a tumor?
I thought he had brain cancer. But,
let's see here. Just about glioblastoma and John McCain's cancer. Okay. So it was glioblastoma and cancer. So much for that one. So I was hoping that somebody would give us, a real list. Kay Griggs is worth a listen. If you know what, I've tried to listen through Kay Griggs' talks, and having done years and years of research on this stuff, I think I tried to watch her 4-hour presentation maybe 4 times, and I fell asleep through it each time.
Mm-hmm.
Sanchez the Manchez. They also believe Hillary's been arrested and replaced with a clone or body double.
Okay.
I don't know Is that Snatches? Who's
That's in this. That's one of the premises in this book. The storm is the one of the things that they teach. And what's interesting is he tries to make it look like he's reporting about it. But he obviously is a proponent himself, but he's trying to be subtle and they make it go either way. So if all falls through, then he might say, "Gee, I was trying to warn you about it."
well, here's the thing with research, and I'm sure that people helping QAnon have found valid things. I'm not knocking everybody. I'm not knocking valid discoveries, but there is a process for doing valid research. It starts off with who, what, where, when, then you go to why, then you explain how you got your conclusions. And, you process out the logical fallacies, you look for contradictions in the information. A contradiction is always a lie or an error. There are no contradictions in nature, ever, period, full stop. And so when you go through this process, verify citations all the way down to the primaries. Don't accept third-hand, secondary citations. Get all the way down to the primaries.
Here is the page, the passage where it said McCain was executed. It said John McCain faked cancer at a failed attempt to escape justice. He was later executed by the military for high treason, so that he could not be there to stop Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh, from being nominated. Now, that's just pure nonsense. I mean, I was told that reporters years ago, that reporters for the National Enquirer, a reformed one who had repented of his involvement in it and told Joe Carr, a prominent author, and I, telling some stories about what was going on. He said they'd sit at a bar, they'd drink, and then they'd come up with these headlines and they'd just howl at how funny they were and that people were buying them. And I think some of this stuff on Q is the same thing. They've just thrown these things into the mix and let's see who buys it.
Well, so years ago I was on a flight back from Princeton University doing research at the Mudd and the Firestone libraries on the Huxleys and a bunch of other stuff I was pulling up at the time.
Right.
And I'm flying back, and there's this guy next to me from China, and I'm organizing all the photos of all of the documents I pulled out of the Mudd Library. I had like 1,000 photos I had taken. And the Chinese guy next to me says, the nice thing about China is when you're censored, you're being censored. Because if you write a book, the Marxist, communist, book publisher guy says you have to change this because blah, 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 and it's censored just straight up. And then it occurred to me, but that's because the West, the U.S., uses a free market of ideas to flood everything with nonsense and confusion and hyperbole, so that there are so many misdirections, so many contradictions, that people just throw their hands up and they give up.
Exactly.
So,
Heads they win, tails they win, huh?
Yep, exactly. So by the time you filter through all of the contradictions in the information and pull all of the fallacies out and get down to the truth, you've spent so much time because the sea of disinformation is so deep. So most people don't even want to bother trying to wade through it all. It's just like on MKUltra and Aldous Huxley and stuff. It took me years of research and digging through and going to Princeton and going to different places and calling up university archives and spending a bunch of money to get this stuff sent to me to get to the bottom of his involvement in MKUltra and Tim Leary and the Esalen Institute and SRI and all of these, people behind it. So what else can you tell us about QAnon and the ties?
Well, the fact that it's been that the president hasn't. I'm disappointed that he endorsed the lady from Georgia who openly ran as a QAnon supporter.
Really?
Yes, and I think her last name was Green, and they said she's certain to be elected to Congress because she's from a district that always has voted Republican, heavily Republican, and she won the Republican primary. So that tells me they're gaining an influence and strength, and there's lots of them out there. And my big fear is that what happened in Germany is one of them, and also the fact that there's this belief in running all through the New Age and all through the Manifest Son of God movement and the other, that God's going to send some kind of a signal, and on that signal they're going to unite. And who knows what kind of triggers have been planted out there that these folks might act on, unite on. If one already went crazy in Germany and killed 8 people, and who knows what else is lurking out there. There was a Russian Orthodox priest. He was not always a Russian Orthodox priest. He became it as a convert.
Is that the one that ran the little Orthodox church in Woodstock,
California.
New York? Oh, in California.
I don't know. This one was in California.
Okay.
And I think I have wait a minute. I think his book is lurking here on the shelf behind me. I think this is it. Yes. Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future.
Hold it up a little higher, please. Okay.
And this was a very important book. Somebody sent it to me, and quite frankly, as I wrote the publisher, I said reading it was like drinking pure water after wading through muck. But he had a very, very important statement there about the danger that was going on and what this meant. And see if I can lay my
while you're looking for that, Steve Jones, thanks for watching today. I'm glad you made it. So he's here watching, and he's a regular guest to the show too.
Hello to Steve Jones.
There you go, Steve.
Okay.
Now you got a direct hello from your somebody that an author you like. There you go.
I've got to looking to pull this up.
Mario says, I don't think Constance has ever read Q. She's not qualified to make these statements. Mario, would you please give me a list of things that Q has gotten right? I'm asking
4 of their major books. So
you have 4 of the major books?
4 of their major books. So yeah. Oh yes, I've got enough. Yeah, I've read enough. Somebody said it was. He said, thanks, I can smell it from here. I don't have to walk through it to know what it is. But anyway, I won't.
So here's so Jammer Funk says Pooanon, I like the name, is the same as My Jumper Matters, but to distract Trump supporters instead of the demon crazies.
Okay, now let me...
Well, she's read a lot of quotes from Q. They're complaining that you read books about Q, but you haven't read the QAnon.
They were books from proponents of Q. They were Q's books, not books about Q. I would love to have a book about Q. The one little one I have that kind of looks like it's about Q, QAnon, the Storm, 120-year timeline by Robert S. Smith, is obviously from a proponent, not an opponent of Q.
Okay.
The other books, the QAnon and the Coming Storm and the 1,000 Years of Peace with QAnon, those are QAnon books.
So Mario still has not posted anything. So Mario, please show us some evidence of what QAnon got right. I know there's cognitive dissonance, but the onus of proof falls on you to show us evidence of things that Q got correct. And, I'm sure that he got some things right. I mean, you can't have everything wrong, period. But
a broken clock is right twice a day.
Right. I'm just asking for evidence of what those things were. And if you don't meet the onus of proof, then you're arguing the arbitrary, and we have to dismiss your argument by default. Mario says, I'll be glad to come back next week and give you examples. Going through Q posts is heavy reading. So you don't have ready examples. I mean, I did read a lot of Q back in the early days, and I saw so much fallacious word salad, I gave up trying to go through it myself. I've seen some things come through that may be valid or maybe not be valid. I just couldn't, find a logical footing in it to make it worth my while. But don't take personal offense. We're not attacking you personally. We're just asking you to present examples. But if it ends up being false, I recommend you drop it.
I've got the paragraph I was looking for
Great.
in Father Seraphim Rose's book. He said, "It is all too likely that Jonestown is but the beginning of far worse things to come. In the 1980s, things which only those with the profoundest and clearest Christian faith can even dare think about. It is not merely that politics is becoming religious, for the massacres in Cambodia were acts performed with, quote, religious, that is, demonic fervor, or that religion is becoming political. In the case of Jonestown, such things have happened before, but it may well be that we are now beginning to see in concrete historical acts the particular blending of religion and politics that seems to be required for the zealots of Antichrist, the religious political leader of the last humanity. The spirit, to be sure, has already been present to some degree in the earlier totalitarian regimes of the 20th century, but the intensity of fervor and devotion required for mass suicide, as opposed to mass murder, which has been committed many times in our century, makes Jonestown a milestone in the path to the approaching culmination of modern times. Satan, it would seem, is now entering naked into human history. The years ahead, just ahead, promise to be more terrible than anyone can now easily conceive. This one outburst of satanic-inspired energy led nearly 1,000 people to revolutionary suicide. What of the many other enclaves of satanic energy, some much more powerful than this small movement, that have not yet manifested themselves? And that is my concern. This movement has this blending of politics and religion, and inspiring people this act of fervor. And you've got people on the edges that can be easily pushed over anyway, but when you can have some mass calls, such as happened in Rwanda, when at a signal they united.
Right.
Marilyn Ferguson, when she wrote about what they were expecting would happen one day, that there would be a voice that would unite, and on that signal they would unite. Barbara Marcus Hubbard wrote about this thing, that when the day came, they would unite. And I mean, Jesus said, "No man knoweth the day nor the hour," and that Lucifer doesn't know it either, but he certainly likes to have troops in reserve. And I think that this is a big effort to, like, heads they win, tails they win, push us over the edge, make us laughing stock, make us targets for civil action, make us targets for being shut down for misinformation and disinformation, paint us all with a big brush, when actually this is a movement that I think has clearly features of cut and paste with folks who knew the New Age agenda and who knew enough about the Bible to throw these elements in and to inspire people to these acts of hatred. That the target groups of the New Age were Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And the strategy was to pit us all off against each other, and then we would fight each other to the death, and then they would be the
victors
to come in and restore the world from our ashes.
Right.
I think that
that's what's the Phoenix? Well, no, what's the other one? Pandora, Gaia. Gaia burns the world down.
Oh, yes, Gaia is there.
Right,
goddess,
and then of course you have all these Gaia goddess cults, which means literally just destroy the world's population, and then reseed it. So
right.
There are a lot of interesting comments toward the end here. People are really picking up, and so Mario is going to try to find some good stuff. He said he'll try to find it next week. I was hoping someone would provide something that they could give us during the show tonight. And then it says, Jan, biggest loss of Q followers was in the 2018 election. Q said was protected. Then it said would be used to expose vote fraud. Fail. And then...
first, had that one wrong too. They were going to have a great victory in 2018.
Right. Not a single federal official has been charged with verifiable treason. Not a single player in Operation Crossfire, Hurricane, or Spygate against Trump. Blah, blah, blah. By the way, hi everybody in the chat who's saying hello. I can't say hi to everybody all at once. See, Mario says many of these books are written to discredit Q. I'm not sure if Q needs any help. If you listen to what Constance is saying, it ties into these cults that we discussed at the beginning of the show and throughout. So just be careful, Mario. I know it could be cognitive dissonance. I'm willing to be proved wrong if you have evidence for us. But the onus of proof is on you for that. So just keep that in mind.
Why don't I give you the titles, the four titles that I have of the books that are obviously QAnon books and promoted by QAnon. The first one, the QAnon, The Storm by Robert S. Smith. And then QAnon and the Battle of Armageddon. And that's another one that's just very, very shocking material to me. And they're kind of anonymous also. I don't even know if it states who an author is here. And
then Tony Baloney is saying these damn books are not Q.
Well, this one is obviously a Q book, and it obviously is a Q book, and QAnon and the Battle of Armageddon, and QAnon and 1,000 Years of Peace.
So here's
the New World Order and Taking the Kingdom of Christ by Force.
So
by Robert. Here's the name of an author. By Red Pill, the World Freedom Force Battalion. Yes. They're trying to be quite anonymous themselves. QAnon, they're trying to be quite anonymous. And
right.
QAnon
and that's always a red flag when you can't figure out who who someone is.
Purportedly, I don't know anything about it. Is a Michael Knight and a Martin Geddes. And I don't know anything about either one of them.
So Mario says QAnon are tens of thousands of Q followers who help decode for us less capable of getting the clues. Well, if you need that much evidence for the clues, or if you need to decode something, that to me, it's ambiguous. Why not go out? Why not say here's the evidence?
Well, they have their website, which I went to and found, and they have their, they have I think it's QAnon.pub or something like that, and they have a lot
QMap.pub, I think, direct QMap.pub.
They, I did save what I could find and did a PDF printing to my system here, QAnon, but they, I think it's a very, very dangerous group, and I guess one of my fears too was that they might be branded. Somebody might accuse me of starting Q. They already accused me of being a major factor in Brexit. I said I wasn't. Brexit was kind of funny, but I wasn't going to take QAnon on my back.
Well, Thought Gum says what's amazing is the Q PSYOP is working whether people believe it's true or not. Good point.
Yeah.
So. Well, we can go for a few minutes here, a few minutes more here if you want. We're about 2 minutes over the hour.
Okay, it's your show.
Do you want to keep going, or do you want to, or should we wrap it up here?
Whichever you want to do.
Oh, you're not helping me there. So, did you have stuff you wanted to read about QAnon?
Well, there's a wealth of things on the internet, but one of the most telling things to me are some of the videos, and there's one, I said it was White Dove Ministries, and I've tried watching it. I've watched it several times, and I've tried to save it. I can save almost anything to my desk with a disc with real video. But this one, they've got it fixed up. You just cannot seem, when you put it in there, they just can't find it at the address that's up there to save it. But go on and watch it and watch the statements that he's made. They're astounding.
Yeah. So Mario says Q has many times been attacked. He was forced. It's illegal to divulge the truth directly. So here's the issue with that statement, Mario. Whoever puts the evidence out, the onus of proof or the evidence is on them to provide it. If they don't provide that evidence, it's known as arguing the arbitrary, and you dismiss it by default. So if the evidence is all encoded and you need 10,000 people to decode it and figure out what's being said, you don't even know if that's if that's really what was being said.
I've got their page here. Their what I was able to save to disk. I don't know how many pages it worked out to be. I mean, I'll tell you in a second what it. And it was their web page, and it was dated as of September 8th, 2020. And really, there's not a lot. They put a lot of things there, like this one was arrested for this, and that one was arrested for that. But how tying it in, and how they tie the rest of it in. How many pages did that? Let me see if I can open it. Well, only 13 pages, and obviously there must be much more at that site than that. But when I tried to download it, that's all I was able to print to disk. But they've got a website up at qanon.pub.messages.
Mario is accusing you of never of having reading 4 of their books, but never went to the site itself. But you're on right now, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I went to the site. Sure, I did.
Yeah, you're talking about the site right now. So Mario, that was a false statement. Be careful with lying. So thanks everyone. Mario or Thought Gum, thank you, and thanks everyone in the chat. I think here's probably a good place to wrap it up. I think if people get what's your book called, the one that you're gonna send me, I hope.
The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, the New Age Movement and Our Coming Age of Barbarism, which now is looking like our present age of barbarism. It's out in the streets of Portland and Seattle and everywhere else about every night.
Yep. So we can see these, the effects of this, but I recommend downloading your book for free. And I believe I did put the link to your book in the. Right. It's in the show notes right underneath here on YouTube or any place else it posted. So
just discovered there was a Greek edition, and there's a Dutch edition that I think is still circulating, and a German edition, and a Norwegian edition, and probably other editions I don't know about. I just discovered the Greek. So and
unauthorized versions that you were never paid for on top of that.
And there's a published edition in the works. There's a published translation being prepared now. So.
Well, don't you just love it when publishers do that stuff, and then they obviously kept it secret so they didn't have to give you a cut. So
they kept the money. They sure did. Okay.
Good grief. Stealing from little old ladies, isn't that?
Well, I wasn't in it for the money anyway. I could practice law as a backup, but okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Constance. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the super chats. Logosmedia.com. Please hit the like and subscribe, and go to. You can also support the show at the Patreon link and the Logos Media PayPal link, etc. $at logosmedia.com for what's that thing called? Cash App, and then there's a Bitcoin thing there too if you prefer that. Thank you all for your support and for tuning in. Thank you, Constance, and everybody. Good night.
Thank you, John.